The US and Canada are building a $6.4 billion bridge across the Detroit River, uniting the two countries, increasing transport efficiency, and positively impacting the environment. For nearly 200 years, the American-Canadian border between Detroit and Windsor has been a pivotal location. In 1833, the British Imperial Act abolished slavery in Canada, and over the following decades, it was used as a key crossing for fugitive slaves along the Underground Railroad. And during the late 19th century, Detroit's central location in the Great Lakes region helped it expand into a major center for commerce, trade, and manufacturing. Then, in the early 20th century, the rise of Ford Motors and the automobile industry quickly elevated it into a world-class city. Between 1900 and 1930, Detroit's population more than quintupled, from 285,000 to over 1.5 million. With this rapid growth and the city's strategic position along the Canadian border, international transport and trade soon prospered. However, almost all this transport was by ferries, which are slow, expensive, and have limited capacity. As a result, in 1910, the Michigan Central Railway Tunnel opened underneath the Detroit River, providing the first physical link between Detroit and Windsor. Only 19 years later, in the Ambassador Bridge, a 4-lane, 560-meter span suspension bridge opened 1.5 kilometers to the east of the tunnel. This was soon followed by the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel in 1930, a highway tunnel only 3 kilometers northeast of the bridge. Over the following decades, these three connections helped fuel transport between the US and Canada. And even as Detroit began declining throughout the late 20th century, demand for these crossings did not subside. Nowadays, the Ambassador Bridge is the busiest international border crossing in North America, carrying more than 4 million vehicles a year, equivalent to 24% of all merchandise trade between the US and Canada. The Detroit-Windsor Tunnel carries another 1 million vehicles. However, these crossings are aging and nearing capacity. In addition, they are poorly connected to the existing highways. To cross the border, vehicles must currently get off at Michigan's I-75, cross the Ambassador Bridge, go through border control, and drive for over 3 kilometers on Windsor City streets with traffic lights before hopping on Ontario's Highway 401. This process is inefficient and time-consuming. As a result, between 2000 and 2001, the US and Canadian governments formed the Binational Transport Partnership to investigate the need for a future Detroit River crossing. Between 2001 and 2003, feasibility studies were conducted, and in 2004, a new bridge proposal was announced. Over the following years, environmental studies were carried out, and in 2009, environmental approval was granted in both the US and Canada. In 2011, construction began on the Herb Gray Parkway, a $1.4 billion, 6-lane, 11-kilometer extension of Highway 401 to the future bridge crossing. Then, in June 2012, Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper and Michigan Governor Rick Snyder announced an agreement enabling the bridge to proceed. Shortly after, the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority was established to coordinate the bridge's construction. However, around this time, the project began facing heavy opposition from one party, Manuel Maroon, the billionaire owner of the Ambassador Bridge, who feared the new crossing would destroy his bridge's monopoly status. In 2011, the Maroon-owned Canadian Transit Company began running advertisements against the bridge, and in 2012, Maroon spent over $30 million promoting an amendment to the Michigan Constitution that would help prevent the bridge's approval. In addition, Maroon filed several lawsuits against Canada and Michigan, alleging that the new bridge was illegal and that his business had exclusive rights to a span connecting Detroit and Windsor. He also proposed a second span of the Ambassador Bridge that he would own privately. Despite this, progress continued. In 2013, the Obama administration granted Michigan permission to build the bridge, and in May 2014, the US Coast Guard issued the final permit needed for construction. Then, on May 14, 2015, the bridge name was announced. Gordie Howe International Bridge, after the celebrated Canadian ice hockey player whose career included 25 years with the Detroit Red Wings. Meanwhile, property began being acquired and preparatory works started. And by 2016, the last of Maroon's lawsuits had been dismissed. Still, one roadblock remained. Maroon, who owned many of the properties needed for construction, was refusing to sell. Fortunately, in May 2018, the Michigan Court of Appeals ruled against Maroon's attempt to stop expropriations, finally allowing the project to commence. As a result, on July 5, 2018, the Bridging North America Consortium, consisting of AECOM, Dragados Canada, Fluor Corporation, AECON, and ACS Infrastructure, was selected to design, build, operate, and maintain the bridge. Finally, on October 5, 2018, construction began. The Gordie Howe International Bridge will be a 2.5-kilometer long cable-stayed bridge across the Detroit River, uniting I-75 in Detroit, Michigan to Highway 401 in Windsor, Ontario. It will feature a single 853-meter-long span across the Detroit River, making it the longest main span of any cable-stayed bridge in North America. This span will be supported by two A-shaped, hockey stick-inspired towers built on opposite banks of the Detroit River. They will rise 220 meters, just slightly shorter than the Golden Gate Bridge towers, and over 70% the height of the Eiffel Tower. The main bridge deck will be 37.5 meters wide, hosting 6 lanes, 3 Canada-bound and 3 USA-bound, along with a 3.6-meter wide bike and pedestrian lane that will integrate with new and existing trails, as well as bike paths. This deck will have a 46-meter clearance above the river, allowing for safe boat navigation, and will be supported by 216 cables anchored to the towers. On each side of the main span, there will be a total of 1.6 kilometers of approach bridges connecting to ports of entry on both the US and Canadian sides. On the US side, the port of entry will cover 68 hectares and will feature over 30,000 square meters of building space, 36 primary inspection lanes, and 12 hectares of landscaped area, making it one of the largest ports of entry in North America. On the northern side, it will be connected to I-75 by 4 interchange ramps that will span the local railway. I-75 will also be revamped. 3 kilometers of it will be rebuilt and widened, and 4 new road bridges and 5 new pedestrian bridges will be built across the highway. In addition, 10 to 20 feet tall concrete noise walls will be installed, helping mitigate noise impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods. Lastly, on the Canadian side, the port of entry will cover 53 hectares and will feature over 12,000 square meters of building space, 24 primary inspection lanes, 16 toll booths, and 10 hectares of landscaped area. It will be the largest port of entry in Canada and will link up directly with the Herb Gray Parkway and Highway 401, providing seamless connectivity between the US and Canada. In total, the Gordie Howe International Bridge, ports of entry, and I-75 improvements will cost 6.4 billion Canadian dollars. The bulk of this is being funded by the Canadian federal government, with significant contributions from the US federal government and state of Michigan for the I-75 interchange. To cover this cost, the Canadian federal government will be collecting toll revenue at its port of entry. In order to build bridges like the Gordie Howe International Bridge, a whole lot of math and science knowledge is needed. Fortunately, with today's sponsor, Brilliant.org, you can learn these topics right from home. Brilliant is an online community with thousands of fascinating lessons on math, data analysis, programming, AI, and more. Its lessons are filled with hands-on problem-solving activities that are proven to be 6 times more effective than lecture videos, helping you build foundational understanding and critical thinking skills. Not to mention, all the content is crafted by award-winning teachers and researchers from MIT, Caltech, Google, and more. Right now, I'm enjoying a course on the physics of the everyday. I'm learning about beam and truss bridges, arch and suspension bridges, skyscrapers, and more. And with Brilliant, it is intuitive and highly interactive. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do for personal growth, and with Brilliant, it becomes fun and simple. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/Futurology channel or click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thank you, Brilliant, and now back to the video. Once complete, the Gordie Howe International Bridge will provide numerous benefits. First of all, the bridge will seamlessly unite I-75 and Highway 401. This will reduce congestion and idling times, shortening border crossing times by between 11 to 18 minutes, while lowering vehicle emissions and positively impacting the environment. In addition, by serving as a new connection, the bridge will provide redundancy in the case of closures, while enabling border crossings to increase from 18,500 vehicles a day in 2016 to 26,500 by 2025. Furthermore, the bridge is designed for heavy usage and to be resilient under severe weather and climate change. This, combined with modern customs and border facilities, will increase safety and cross-border security. Moreover, the bridge features a sustainable design. Durable and resource-efficient materials are being utilized, giving the structure a 125-year service life. Along the bridge and roads, energy-efficient LEDs are being used, and in the buildings, natural light is being taken advantage of, reducing energy consumption by 32%. Green roofs are being incorporated on selected buildings. Native, drought-resistant, and low-maintenance vegetation is being used in the green areas, and habitats are being nurtured on the river shoreline to support endangered aquatic species. Lastly, a peregrine falcon box is being installed on the bridge. Further out, the Gordie Howe International Bridge has even wider benefits. As part of the project, $23 million is being invested into communities on both sides of the border, including towards parks, recreation facilities, and community centers. And by providing an estimated 2,500 jobs, the project has created opportunities for local residents. Not to mention, by improving infrastructure, the project will make Detroit more attractive to investment, helping it come back after decades of economic and population decline. Lastly, even further out, by fostering collaboration and connectivity between the US and Canada, the project will strengthen international relations, encourage cross-border tourism, facilitate trade, and serve as a symbol of North American unity. Since construction began on October 5, 2018, progress on the Gordie Howe International Bridge has advanced significantly. In 2019, preparatory work for major construction continued with the cleaning of contaminated land. In 2020, work began on the foundations of the bridge towers, and the new pedestrian bridges over I-75 were unveiled. Then, in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic struck. Fortunately, while work practices changed and material shortages ensued, progress on the bridge continued. By December 2020, foundation work for the bridge towers was completed, and work on the towers themselves began. Starting in March and November 2021, work began on buildings at the Canadian and US ports of entry. In January 2022, work began on the ramps connecting I-75 to the American port of entry, and by March 2022, the legs of the bridge towers on both sides of the river had been completed. Meanwhile, construction on the road deck for the approach bridges began. In October 2022, the 35 anchor boxes, which are used to hold the cables, began being installed on the bridge towers. And only a month later, the towers themselves reached 150 meters in height. In December 2022, construction on the main span bridge deck began. In January 2023, the cables began being installed, and by August and December 2023, the US and Canadian bridge towers reached their full height. In early 2024, deck sections and cables continued being installed on the bridge. At the ports of entry, construction continued on buildings, including roofing, masonry work, drywall, and elevator and equipment installation. and at the inspection lanes and toll booths, framing and final touch-ups occurred. Then, on June 14, 2024, the last deck section was placed into the middle of the bridge, uniting the US and Canadian sides. As of July 2024, the main bridge structure is complete. However, the cables still need to be stressed, the deck needs to be paved and marked, electrical and fire protection systems need to be implemented, and barriers, signs, and lighting need to be installed. At the approach bridges, concrete work is underway. Along I-75, all 4 road bridges have finished construction, while the 5 pedestrian bridges and highway renovations are still underway. Over the upcoming months, construction will come to an end across the project, and testing will begin. Currently, the bridge is planned to open to the public by fall 2025. Once in service, it will unite the US and Canada, boosting transport efficiency and positively impacting the environment. If you enjoyed this video, it would be amazing if you like and subscribe to Futurology for more videos very similar to this one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.